Everyone, welcome for staying. I know it's almost lunchtime, so I will try to do this quickly and hopefully teach you something. My session is about command line craftsmanship, building and sharing .NET CLI tools. First, a little bit about myself. I'm Roland Bodenstaff. I'm from the Netherlands. I work as an Azure cloud developer for a company called InSpark. It's a Microsoft ecosystem specialized company. I also blog a little bit on my robot.dev. So if you want to know more about me, please do look at that. Maybe this sounds familiar. You want to build some code, you want to build some easy tasks, but there's nothing available for it. So you think like, oh, I'll just build something quickly for a tool or for a colleague of yours. And then you actually start doing it, and it becomes a lot of work. Way more than anticipated. You have submenus after submenus. You need to put the CSS in the correct order because it's just not that pixel perfect, or it's just not that centered. That the div is not centered correctly. You don't want to have all that hassle. You just want the raw performance. You want to make it like a building block, so you can use it at multiple systems, or even combine it in a shell. Because you simply don't have the time for all these graphical things. Well, then maybe, if it sounds familiar, building a CLI tool is a good idea for you. But what makes a CLI tool good? Well, to me, it's really a focus on simplicity. It doesn't have to be a Swiss knife, have 50 features, but it needs to be concise and simple. It needs to be clear to the user. Should have validation, of course, for the arguments you're passing. Should have proper documentation, because nothing's more annoying when you're in your shell, you're trying out a few commands, and some things are just not documented. You need to go to the web page again, where the CSS is not correct. And one of the most important parts for me, I need to be able to install it without jumping through 50 hoops. Some command line semantics, so we speak the same language. What the difference are between a command, an argument, and an option. Here you can see a CLI. The CLI is the actual command, or the actual CLI tool. The command is, for example, exchange. An argument could be a value, or it's a positional value, so you can have 0 or multiple arguments. And of course, you have the option, the optional, the name implies it. For example, log information or -- debug, or even you can even give it a value. Okay, but that was where I was a few months ago. I've built a lot of console apps in my time, always the little scripts, and they looked horrendous, and I didn't know where to start because I wanted to make it a little bit more fancy. So it was a large mountain to climb for me. But what I did know was .NET. That's really my specialty. So I've looked into it, and I found that there were something called .NET tools. Is there anyone familiar with .NET tools? No, not that much. Maybe at least some. What it provides is a way to install tools that were provided by the community to install on your local machine. You can also just install it in a local project, but most of the time you install it globally. You can search on it. There are a lot of, like, thousands of tools you can easily install and use on your machine. You only have to have .NET installed. Okay, but after that, I don't want to make a basic, like, for example, I don't want to build my own web server, so I use ASP.NET. Well, the same applies for console apps. I don't want to reinvent the wheel. So I scoured the internet and I found Spectre Console. It has everything I want. It has built-in alias and parameter support, built-in help documentation, because nothing's more annoying than writing documentation. It has validation hooks, so it can parse arguments. And of course, even though CSS is awful, I still want it to look a little bit pretty. Okay, but enough about that. Let's start crafting some CLI tools, or show you some code. First, I would like to show you what it's actually built. It's a simple exchange tool that can convert some currencies. For example, if I just press enter, you can see it has a fancy ASCII art, some usage. So for example, you have some examples, it has list, command, convert, you have the commands available, you have the arguments that can be specified. So for example, well, we're here in Denmark, so let's search if there is a DKK supported. And yes, there is. It's a simple table, nothing more, nothing less. Okay, and then for example, if we want to convert something, you can easily do it with the arguments provided, and this is apparently the result. It actually gets that from an API, an Exchange API. And last but not least, to show you some fancy. As you can see here, you have Hello Copenhagen, so the name is specified. I can choose a color, so it's a bit more interactive. Some may not agree, but at least you can select a few options. For example, well, I will try yellow, for example. You can have progress bar, so if there's a long-running task, you can easily show that with just a few lines of code. And after that, you can also create trees very easily. You can have charts, panels, you name it. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of good documentation about it, but there's a lot of features it has built in. Okay, well, let's dive into some code. As you can see on the right, I hope it's visible a little bit. It's just a console app, just a regular old .NET console app. I've added the package, Spectre Console. For example, just a few lines of code, or actually one line of code. You can write the large ASCII characters. Just the DI and that stuff is not really important right now. But it's just like an ASP.NET app. You can instantiate a command app. After that, you can configure it, so you can add commands. For example, well, the convert command. You can have a simple description, just chaining methods together, so it really feels natural to, if you're familiar with ASP.NET. You can specify aliases, you can have multiple examples, but command is nothing more than a class that derives from command or async command. Here you can see that you can have certain methods you need to override. For example, you can, if your command needs to have some arguments or options, you can specify a class for that, and you can easily give the arguments in which position they are, and it automatically generates all the documentation around that. One of the most important parts is, for example, you can override the validation hook, so you can provide some custom validation, and if it's an error, it gets a proper error back. As you can see here, we just get the settings. The execute async is the actual hook that actually executes the command. So you can get from the Exchange API. We just create a simple table and write that to the console. Nothing more, nothing less. You can also specify the color if you want to center it, and so forth. Just to show you a little bit about, for example, the fancy command, to give someone an option is simply a prompt. Hey, I want a color, and give them some choices. It's really simple to get some beautiful console apps. Okay, but now you have your little nugget, your precious little .NET tool, but you want, just like good food, you want to share it with the world. Well, .NET, of course, has something for that, NuGet, where you can just, you already upload your, well, if you download most of the time, shared packages from third parties, but you can also upload .NET tools. Before you can do that, you do need to specify some files, some parameters in your CS project file. First off, of course, is the package tool. So .NET knows it's a tool. You can have a tool command name. Well, for mine, for example, is Exchange. I just did a random output path, and the rest is just some metadata that is uploaded to NuGet. Oh, wrong. Wait. Okay, now we want to, your tool is done. You want to publish it. It's as simple as .NET pack. So it makes a NuGet package. You can push it to NuGet. The API key is just, you make an account at NuGet.org, you get your personal API key, and you're off to the races. You can also go, of course, to your private repository, so it's only inside of the company. And after that, you can simply, in whatever machine you want, you can just .NET Tool install. If you want it globally, you give the global flag, and it's installed. And after that, you can go and run to your colleagues and scream, you get a .NET Tool, you get a .NET Tool, everybody gets a .NET Tool. Don't know if this time, I think lunch, I think everyone's very negative for lunch. So if you have any questions, please feel free to scoot on by, and thank you for your time. And have a nice lunch.